This is Basket Case Clubs, CPR Group's podcast where we turn basket case clubs into showcase clubs. G'day everyone, welcome back to Basket Case Clubs. My name's Michael Connolly and it is my pleasure to guide you on this journey. Again, joining me as usual, and no, not as usual because sometimes he doesn't join me. Sometimes I drag him along kicking and screaming. But here's Steve.
Partner in basket casey crime.
Yes,
Goodness. Crime.
Goodness. Well, are we talking
Some
crime
our
today?
jokes are so bad sometimes that people might say it's a crime
It's against the law.
humanity. Yeah. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good.
Pleasure to be taken on this ride of basket casey goodness, wherever you may be taking us.
So are we going to talk about crime today? Is there any element of what we're talking about that could be seen as criminal? I'm going to say I hope not. Because we've been talking over the last few episodes about stuff that should be in the Constitution and how to deal with things like ambiguity in the Constitution, who interprets it if there's a problem. Spent some time on membership, believe it or not, and we delved into life membership, which is always fascinating. So there's a bit to go still, but we've got a webinar coming up about leading productive AGMs. So what makes a good AGM? And I figured that this would be not a bad opportunity to talk about the link between what makes a good AGM and what goes in the Constitution.
And sometimes I think it's important to point out, because I suspect that an underlying theme in this discussion is going to be, check your Constitution, make sure that whatever we talk about, wherever this journey may take us,
Which, by the way, we don't really have a good idea. You know, it could go anywhere.
Your guess is as good as ours. But we always will, when we're talking about specific things like annual general meetings that do have a pretty significant element of legal considerations and what you have to do under the legislation. And we've got our kind of experience in preparing for and running and assisting clubs to run successful and productive AGMs. And, you know, we will also often point to best practice, but it's important to look at your Constitution. But one of the big problems, where I started this rant, was going to be that often constitutions lack clarity when it comes to this stuff. And if your Constitution's old, it might also not tell you to do certain things at your AGM that the legislation under which you're established now says you have to do at your AGM. So yes, the caveat is check your Constitution and make sure that you're doing what is right under it. But if you've got an old Constitution or you've got concerns that it might be outdated, you might also need to talk to nerds like us to make sure you're doing the right thing for your AGM.
Nerds like us. I reckon we could have a movie in that. Yeah. Will you be Dan Aykroyd or Chevy Chase? Yeah. So, okay, there's a lot that we need to really go through here, but we don't need to go through everything because we've talked about AGMs and we've talked about good meetings on the podcast previously.
Yep.
It's specifically about the Constitution here that I'm specifically interested in today. I don't think I got two specificallys in that last sentence.
Now three, if you rolled onto that one.
Speaking. So let's start. It's called Basket Case Club. So let's start with some basket case examples. And I've mentioned it before. I remember one day running out of the door to go to an AGM, and Ethan, he was very little at the time, and now he's anything but little. And he said, "Oh, where are you going, Daddy?" I said, "I'm going to an AGM." And he knew what AGM stands for, Annual General Meeting. And he made a quip about understanding what the word annual means. And he said, "Oh, well, Daddy, at least it only happens once a year." And I said, "Oh, son, not for me." So we, as you said, we've probably become pretty good at AGMs. But I want to share a story about something that happened recently. And admittedly, this was an SGM, not an AGMS for special general meetings. So it was for the purposes of adopting a new constitution. And nice link between meetings and constitutions. So that's why they were having the
well
meeting.
Done.
Met that. Well, exactly. But it's not actually the constitution bit that was the problem. It was, I think it was really an application of the rest of the rules about how to maintain order at an AGM. And so this SGM turned to custard.
Okay.
That's probably the best way to put it. And I am deliberately taking you on a little bit of a tangent here because the stuff that I'm going to talk about is...
Because this is basket case clubs.
Exactly. Or because it's any conversation between Michael and Steve. Or possibly any of our brothers and sister. Yeah. So, but it is just a tangent of tangents, really. What do you call a
podcast of tangents?
A murder of tangents? I feel like I want a gaggle of tangents. Anyway, the Constitution part went as it went.
Yes.
So the vote for the Constitution.
Right, okay. So it was the adoption of the Constitution.
And all done fine. Constitution didn't get adopted.
Okay.
But it was more about how the meeting degenerated into... Look, it was to the point of defamation. So it was nasty, it got personal.
Was that the underlying problem, that there were people in the meeting who didn't like one another and were using it as an opportunity to grandstand that dislike?
No and yes. So the grandstanding, absolutely, there was an opportunity to have a platform. So yes, and they took that.
Okay.
So this is stuff that may exist in standing orders, and standing orders typically don't sit in the Constitution. They'll sit as a subordinate document. They might be in bylaws, regulations, in a policy manual, in an operations manual, because the standing orders are the rules by which a meeting is run.
Yes.
So the tangent is because the standing orders aren't in the Constitution, but it's about how you get through these types of meetings. And really, I think it's a fundamental flaw of not-for-profit organisations that are community run, so voluntary-led organisations.
Yep.
So what happened, without going into detail that might give away who this organisation was, the person grandstanded from the floor of the meeting, and it wasn't even about the constitutional changes. It was about the process that they themselves and their gaggle, their murder, they're a bunch of crows. I found a book when I was in Tasmania, and it was about all of the different, from A to Z of all
collective
of the
nouns.
Yeah, and I didn't buy it, and it was beautifully illustrated. So I wish I'd bought it because I could have had that as a prop. Anyway, it was this person grandstanded, and because that person is a member, and they started their rant by saying, I am a member and I have a constitutional right to address this meeting based on clause 13.1
which is a big
of the
warning bell.
Constitution.
Yes, you think, oh shit,
Here we go.
now. Yeah.
And indeed, and then they literally wound up and let fly.
So was this, sorry, just for context, was this during the consideration of the proposed new constitution, or is this after?
It was the only item of business.
Okay, so
to
it
be
was an
considered
SGM
at the
only
AGM.
for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So yes, it was.
Okay.
So then the committee are starting to think, well, okay, he has a constitutional right, but they're looking around, and at least this person has got a bunch of people to come and vote, to exercise their constitutional right to vote, as he no doubt explained in great detail, and had some others, not as many as it turns out as this person. But because he's a member, and he does have a constitutional right to speak, and we don't have any rules written here about how long he can have the floor, or how many other people sitting in the wings might want to have the same length of time speaking.
Yep. Which is quickly going to get unworkable.
How long do we let this go?
Okay. Can I ask a quick question for fear of derailing your train of thought?
You can't derail a tangent.
It's already derailed.
This was off the rails when we got here, baby.
So is the fundamental problem there a lack of standing orders, or is the fundamental lack of problem there actually a lack of confidence of the chairperson?
That one.
Because even without standing orders, and you and I have both run plenty of meetings with organisations where there are pretty poor standing orders, if any at all, and we've kept control of meetings because that's the job of the chair. And it's just clicked to me which organisation you're talking about now. And so it sounds like there wasn't clarity in there wasn't confidence resting with the chairperson to the point where they could pull it into line. Because the questions that you just asked are very good ones. All right, mate, you want to talk for 5, 10, however many minutes it was. Let's say there are 30 or 50 people in this room. If everyone exercises that constitutional right to the same extent, we're going to be here a really long time. And that's not a good use of any of our limited amount of time on this earth, to put it bluntly.
Yeah, on this earth, not in this meeting.
Yeah.
But if you go back to the main point that you identified, which was that the chairperson didn't rein it in because they didn't know, believe,
They had
feel,
the
understand.
right to do so.
Purely because what makes me a more powerful member than you? You're a member, I'm a member, we both pay the same fees, we both take part in the same activities.
And if that's the
enjoy
chairperson
same-
asking that question, the answer is the title of chairperson.
Yeah, and the role of chairperson brings that
Yeah.
authority to maintain order, and that's what is written in the Constitution.
Yep,
Add
absolutely.
at least something that is on
Yeah.
the topic here.
Yeah.
Maintain order in meetings.
Yep.
So in that case, and for reasons that I think have become quite clear, I have a sneaky suspicion that I will be at the AGM when the question is put next time,
yes.
as we go forward.
Yep.
What would I have done in that situation? So, what do you think that I would have done? So, at the point where this person has said, I want to exercise my constitutional right to speak, or maybe even before that, how would you have prepared with everyone else on the committee beforehand?
Oh, well, ideally, yes, prepare with everyone else beforehand and set some ground rules or, like you say, standing orders for the meeting if you don't already have them. And if you do have them, even get to the point of having a list that you can read out at the start of the meeting, as we have done at the start of special or annual general meetings, to
Which
say...
only needs to be
really
10 dot points tops. Like,
Any
it
more than
doesn't
that,
need-
people are going to forget them.
Yeah, and so we don't need to go into detail about a motion needs to be moved and seconded before it's discussed. We don't.
But
need
everyone
that.
can talk for this long, or get to the point where you actually put it to the members present and say, you are the primary or highest order decision making authority within this organisation, within this not-for-profit club association, and do you want to allow all of you to exercise your constitutional right to speak, and if so, for how long?
I wouldn't go against what's in the Constitution, and do we put that in? Like, should it actually say, as a member, you have a constitutional
We've set
right?
that rule. When we've had that list of 10 points at the start of a meeting that we expect is likely to have some colourful characters in attendance.
But I wouldn't ask the members to say, we're not going to let you speak. But I would certainly say, and this is not what we ask the members.
Sure.
As in preparation, I would say, and just working with committee members and staff beforehand, so staff are going to help manage the vote and everything, so that's why they're there. We're going to say, if somebody wants to speak, they have a maximum of 3 minutes. We will have a stopwatch, and when their time is exhausted, their time will be exhausted.
Yes.
The other way we manage it so that we don't have to have everyone speak, because if everyone's lining up to speak, we say, okay, and again, in the standing orders or the rules for this meeting that we don't have, we're setting them. And even if we don't have them, we are the committee. We are in control of this meeting. We will set the parameters by which this meeting is run for exactly the reason you said, out of respect for everyone's time. Yeah, there's better things you can be doing with your life, but we're going to get through this relatively quickly. And so the first thing is time limit. The second thing is speaker for the motion, and then a speaker against the motion, or vice versa. And the speaker for the motion may be indeed and it might be the chairperson who speaks on behalf of the committee or board to say, now we're presenting the Constitution, this is why we're doing it. 3 minutes. Everyone has had an opportunity to read the Constitution as it is, the Constitution as it's amended, and the differences between the two. All of that's been done. There's been consultation done. So,
extensive in this organisation's case, consultation.
Not if you talk to old mate who's got the floor.
Yeah. And therefore the ear of others and can poison the well. Yeah.
To the point, and I recognise that I've said he, so I had tried to be neutral.
There's a 50-50 chance that, our listeners are going to be able to identify who it is based on that. No.
So speaker for, speaker against, because then, I'll come back to the other point, but if we get to the point where we've got plenty of people who have got the shits with this idea and they don't support it, but nobody else is here to speak for it, we have speaker for, speaker against. Speaker for, which can be a response to the first speaker against, speaker against. Speaker for, speaker against. Anyone else have anything to say? No, we've said everything.
Decision.
One more speaker against, but if there's no one to take the opposite, despite the fact there might be a dozen people lining up here to take the mic, there are no more speakers for the other side, so we now have the point where we are going to put the motion. There we go. The other point here, though, is that, and I realise that this has become an episode of a tangent of how to manage an AGM. But we'll close out and talk about the stuff that should be in the Constitution to deal with it. Otherwise, just come along to the webinar. It's 22nd of April, I believe. Come along, about lunchtime. So go to our website, cprgroup.com.au, and you'll see a little training and resources, and go to the webinars, drop down there, and that's where you can register. And they're always fun. So the other
Just ask us.
well, I always have fun. Yeah. It's almost as fun as an episode of Basket Case Clubs. It's just I don't get the same level of feedback, by which I mean terrible jokes. So the other point, though, is as he stood up, he said, look, I don't really have anything to say about the Constitution itself. It's more about the process of engagement that you went through because I wasn't personally engaged. As chair, I would say right up front, well, we're here to talk about the Constitution, not the process, because that's in the past and we can't go back and change that. We're here to talk about the Constitution. Keep your comments to the Constitution, because then his rant, which in his defence wasn't longer than 3 minutes, so it didn't go on unnecessarily. So they were concerned it might, and this has become a question that we've dealt with after the fact.
Yep.
Because we're now strategising on, Michael, how would you have done this? AKA, how will you do this when we reconvene to put this motion again?
Yep.
But really clearly, what are the things that you should be allowing people to talk to and not? But the main point is that, yes, we are both members to the authority of the chair, to the confidence of the chair, I forget the word that you used, to the confidence of the chair to control the meeting. Yeah, we are both members, but it's my job to maintain order here and not to let people slag off at staff or committee members here just because they've got a beef with a process that was or was not followed. Keep your comments focused on this, and then if there are other matters coming up, like the behaviour of some club members or the behaviour of some staff members, those are other matters.
Yep.
This meeting, if you look at the notice that went out 2 or 3 weeks ago in this case, 21 days, you'll see it's for the purpose of adopting the new constitution or putting the question to members, do we adopt this new constitution? We need to focus on that because that's what went out in the notice.
Yep. And recognising that that's an SGM story example, this same sort of loss of control happens at AGMs.
Yep.
And so, to go back to a comment that we said before that tangent, make sure that your constitution is clear in articulating what has to happen at your AGM, but also ensure that you've got clarity amongst the people, with the person as the chair, but also the other committee members, as to how the meeting's going to run, how you're going to maintain order and ensure that you're not there for a ridiculous amount of time.
A little bit of scenario planning in your preparation. What could go wrong? What will we do if people want to speak? Which encourage people to speak. Absolutely, this is the time. So long as they have a constitutional right to do so, aka being members.
Yeah, the other thing that's been coming up quite a bit lately, and I'm confidently happy to go on another tangent here. This is about AGMs. Is the submission of motions by members for consideration at the AGM. Some constitutions provide very clearly for that to happen, and they spell out a process by when the proposed motions by members must be received by the secretary, and provide for, or don't, the management committee to exercise some decision-making authority over whether that proposed motion is actually going to be put to the meeting for consideration, or whether they've got the right to say,
not a decision for members.
That's correct. Yeah. It's not a decision for members. And some, I move that the general manager be sacked. You go moving that motion at a general meeting and acting upon it, you're pretty quickly likely to find yourself in hot water.
Fair work.
That's right.
I move that we halve our fees.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's these guys that go to jail for insolvent trading.
Yeah.
Or become personally liable for.
Or even other completely unworkable, unable to be implemented if they're carried motions like, I vote that we build a larger shed over on that land that we don't actually have a lease over right now.
Yeah.
So this is, I think, an area where committees feel really conflicted because they want to allow members to exercise their constitutional right, and they want to allow members to feel as though they've got an opportunity to have their say and to influence the decision making of the either members or the management committee or board, but they also want to be running meetings that are productive and that are not running for a really long amount of time to the point where it's a waste of time. And we've been involved in plenty of those meetings as well. So So this is something where I think it's really important that a constitution should provide clarity on this stuff. And the other question is the AGM the right place for you to be entertaining discussions and making decisions about stuff other than statutory business? And my position on that is no.
So what do you do if there's a desire from members to have those discussions and you've got the AGM coming up anyway?
Have a forum. Have a members forum before or after. Some clubs will even have a separate general meeting.
Well, that's where I was getting. So if it does require a general meeting or a special general meeting to make some decisions, then I've seen it done very effectively quite regularly where you close the AGM and then open the general meeting.
Yeah.
So the AGM does exactly what it's the ceremonial component, it's the statutory component, but then we get into the operational, where members want to contribute to the operations, as you said, in the right way, because it can be as simple as amending a policy that then conflicts with other policies.
Yeah.
So, all right, we can, and this is where...
And if you go doing that in the confines of formal general meeting,
and in isolation of the others, so just myopically looking at this policy, not realising that it's going to have a knock-on effect, maybe even on the Constitution.
Yeah.
We say, well, we're not going to accept any more life members. Well, hang on a minute, you can't say that because in the Constitution, where it addresses life members, it's all there, but then down the bottom it says the number of members in any class of membership shall be unlimited.
Yes.
You can't go against that.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything because it's a subordinate document.
A practical point on that, having a general meeting after the AGM, how do you suggest clubs deal with the uncertainty around the start time of the subsequent general meeting? So let's say you've got an AGM scheduled to start at 9 a.m.
Yep.
Because this is something practically that we've had to deal with.
Okay, go on.
And you say the AGM starts at 9 a.m. We expect it's going to be done by 10. So we're going to say that our general meeting starts at 10 and that's the start time for that meeting. But if your AGM pushes beyond, say, half an hour after the start time of your general meeting, your constitution might say that that meeting can't happen or has to be adjourned to some other future time. So I've seen some clubs say immediately following the AGM schedule for the same day.
That's what I would prefer to do, to have a common sense answer there, because it can go the other way and say the AGM takes 12 minutes.
And then you're waiting around
for 48 minutes.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you did that. That's quickly in your head, saved me from having to do so. But then I think the bigger question for me is, do we really need to have a general meeting, let's say, following the AGM, or could it be a less formal member engagement opportunity? Could we say we're going to have a sausage sizzle after the AGM, we're going to have a member forum, so after the AGM we'll have a break and we'll have a cold soft drink and we'll have a sausage sizzle, and at the same time we're going to provide an opportunity for you to provide input, ask questions of the committee, hear from the newly elected members as to what their plan for the next term is, and so on. That's obviously a case-by-case answer. And in some cases, you do need the formality of a general meeting. But I think it's a really important question for committees to ask. Do we really need to have a general meeting, or could we tack on a member forum, which is and people can go, we don't need a quorum. If we're left with 2 or 3 people who are interested and want to be in that forum, great, we can still have it.
More sausages for the rest of us.
More sausages for everybody else and cans of soft drink. Anyway, so I think that
my answer was obviously going to be it depends.
It depends.
So it depends on the nature of but I think if there's a process, I'm hesitating a little bit, because as far as the AGM goes, I think best if it is ceremonial, because it's the minutes of the AGM that may need to be submitted for an application for a bank account, an insurance policy, for some form of contract where you need to demonstrate that there's been a change. So leasing, for instance, a changeover of the guard, so incoming and outgoing committee members. So then to have all of the potential dirty laundry that the members might want to address in that same meeting in the minutes that become far more public facing in certain circumstances.
Yep, that's a good point.
I'd prefer to keep them separate. So there we go. It was 12 minutes. It's probably a bit tight depending on the business.
Yep.
But I have run a 12-minute AGM.
Yes.
Because it is ceremonial. We celebrated what happened. President's report, Treasurer's report and financials. All clear. It's a very small club. All
and
very
tabled
clear.
as read. Yep.
Yeah. And clear elections. We're done. That's the business that had to be done at that AGM.
Yep.
So the answer is it depends, but I think having the forum, even if there is no need for that, having the forum as an opportunity to engage, as you say, far less
When people are together
formally,
anyway, like you
together
said.
anyway,
Yeah.
and in more of a social setting. So I always find that in the lead up to an AGM, everyone's chatting, you know.
Sometimes there's a bit of tension in the room.
Yeah, but it's, you know, it's light. It's because
Yeah.
it's all, oh, we're not there yet, so everyone's kind of happy. Little piece of advice: open the AGM, close the AGM, then open the bar. Don't open the bar before you open the AGM.
Yeah.
So-
Some of the most colourful SGMs that we've attended in recent years have been because clubs failed to do that.
Follow that one simple rule.
Yep.
Yes. Yes. Beer does not make a successful AGM in some cases. Now I'm just thinking about what went down in those meetings, but we've digressed on enough tangents for now. So yes, it depends. So to bring it back to the intended and unsuccessful purpose.
Oh no, we've touched on it. We've dipped in and out of the topic of
We
the day.
have. So I think that what needs to go into the Constitution in addressing the AGM is largely the statutory stuff.
Yeah.
If you want to celebrate some ceremonial stuff, so we talked about live members a few episodes
Yes.
ago, absolutely, that should absolutely be in there, because
Yep.
if it's not there and it becomes ambiguous,
Leads to
then
problems.
the people who are supporting the people who
Yep.
might be aging, people might not think they've got much time left. We really want to celebrate them, but then they might also have some enemies, and then it becomes nasty, and these personal attacks and trying to grandstand based on what's in the Constitution, what's missing, so what they're making up from
Yeah.
status quo or their
Yep.
perception. So clarity for things like that is really important. But the other thing is, in each state and territory, what are those statutory things that need to be there?
Yep.
So obviously, and when you look at the bare minimum of stuff that has to be done at an AGM, a lot of it's financial.
Yeah.
So if you need an audit report, so if you need to have an audit done, then the presentation of the auditor's report and the audited financials and the treasurer's report and then appointing the auditor are things that need to happen by members. So those are members' decisions to make.
Remembering that the management committee are the members of the organisation who are elected to have access to all of the financial information, because they need that information on which to then base their financial and other decisions. This is the opportunity that members get each year to get insight into the club's financial position. And most incorporated association legislation across the country provides that members can request financial information of the management committee, but that it's to the same sort of level of detail as that which presented at the AGM. So, and this is something that often has been asked by the troublemaking members. I'm a member of this organisation, and that money's members' money, so I'm entitled to all of the information that I want about how that money is managed. And the information that I mentioned is really that which should be restricted for some obvious and some less obvious reasons to only the management committee, whose asses are actually on the line. But it's important to remember that this is the opportunity that members get to get that insight. So it shouldn't just be the case that before the AGM, a couple of copies of the financials are handed around to members who are present. Have a quick look and see if you've got any questions. That's not enough time for me to really exercise any diligent review over this document. So we advocate for sending that set of financial statements out prior to the AGM. Getting it out to members, there should be no secrets.
Well, I'm going to check you on something. There should be no troublemakers. Because what made that person a
If there were no
troublemaker?
troublemakers, there would be no clubs.
Well, we'd have no jobs.
We'd have no jobs.
But you mentioned this person as a troublemaker, but nothing you said was trouble. That person was doing a very good job of exercising their right to question the committee on the financials.
Right, and
So
look,
you're thinking about other things
I'm
that
thinking about-
person has done in the lead up to that point. But
and also the information that they might be requesting access to which they're not privy. Commercial in confidence.
maybe they don't know.
Sure, in some cases, in maybe almost all of these cases, they're certain that they are entitled to that
Yep.
information
So
by virtue of their membership.
So therefore, what hasn't the committee done
Right, okay,
well in communicating that to
Sure.
that person?
Yeah.
Because think about it, just like...
But maybe also there's been some shortcomings in their process in quickly handing out at the start of the AGM in previous years.
So then he's not a troublemaker, is he?
Yeah. You know the sort of person I'm talking about.
I do, but remember that goodies and baddies
Sure.
are all about perspective.
Yep.
So if I'm on the side of the committee in this case, I think I'm a goodie and everyone else who's asking me questions is a baddie.
Yep.
But when I was out there, before I was elected to be a committee member...
Or after I'm no longer on the committee.
I thought they were the baddies. And I thought all of these people that are going to overthrow us. And how many times have we worked with a club, or even state associations, where there has been a spill, and the new people that have come in have said, well, actually, these are the things that we saw that weren't going well. And then you kind of go... Things are humming.
Yep.
Members are happy. Stuff's happening. So they weren't actually baddies.
Yep.
They were seeing things from their perspective, which was in a different perspective from the committee. So exercising that right is actually really important, but not just saying you're a baddie because us and them. There is no us and them.
No, it's all us.
Us.
Yeah.
Recognising to the point about I'm trying to carefully choose my words. The SGM that was run not as confidently as it should have been. Okay, yes, we are all members. It's all us. But as chair, it's my job to keep your actions in check.
Yeah.
And I can stop you from talking about stuff that wasn't on the notice. This is about the Constitution. So do you want to vote for it, yes or no? Because your discussions about the behaviour of other club members or staff members is not... That's not what we're talking about.
Not up for discussion.
Yeah. To the Constitution.
Yep.
Keeping control of that. So statutory, and so the other statutory stuff then, depending again on state and territory, is do we need to declare any remuneration and benefits paid to management committee members or key staff members?
Yep.
Do we need to elect a public officer as well as committee members? Do we need to appoint a patron? Which is typically not legislative, but is it something that we want to put in there because we want to have that ceremony side?
Yep.
So on the ceremony side, we might have some positions like that we appoint.
Yep.
Auditor is not a ceremonial position. Auditor is a statutory position.
Yep.
In the cases where an organisation needs to have an audit, so absolutely needs to be done. And then electing the office bearers. And on the ceremonial side, and look, sometimes it is legislated or it is required from a compliance perspective in organisations that report to other organisations or that are affiliated with peak bodies, that we require a report from the President on activities of the previous year. Because we know that if we mandate that in our Constitution, that the committee, or the outgoing committee, should they all be leaving, have a responsibility to report to their members on what we've done, how we have delivered value to you as members, how we have responsibly used your funds, because it's all members' funds. Remembering the definition of not-for-profit means that whenever we spend that money, it just can't be taken out by members as if we're paying dividends to shareholders. It needs to go in furthering the objects. So great, let's report on that with transparency and let the members ask questions, and indeed encourage them to ask questions. To give you a bit of leeway with your comment about the, what do you call him, the troublemaker. I'll call him the baddie. It's about giving people enough information to be asking the best questions. So many times I've sat in an AGM and heard questions on the financials that go to, and it's not just the auditor's report in this case, it's the general ledger. So even with codes. Now I can see that under code 4427, this year had $1,080 there. But when I look at last year, it was $7,812. Why is that? Missing the point that if you go down to the bottom line, they ran at a $60,000 loss. Don't you think that would be a more interesting question to say, what have we invested in here? Or what decisions have you, the committee, made that have led us to a point of having a loss? To which the Treasurer may rightly respond, depreciation changed, we've purchased some assets, we've invested in some staff, that we've actually taken a loss there, so we've taken money from the balance sheet to take a risk, putting on a technical director, a head coach, whatever it is. There should be an answer, but those are the right sorts of questions. And even...
And the answer to your first question could be as simple as new treasurer accounting for something in a different way and recording it under a different account.
And then, but you'll see I forget the numbers I use, but the balance of about $6,000 is actually in a different code. So it's the expenditure was the same across the years, it's down there. So simple question, they're welcome to ask those questions. we, as members of incorporated associations, are welcome to ask those sorts of questions. From my perspective, what's the bigger picture though? So if we're looking at growth, if we're running at a loss, we can't grow, because while we're not for profit, the profit that we do make is where growth lives.
And again, to go back to a point that we've been kind of alluding to a little bit in this discussion, why wasn't that explanation about the $60,000 loss already presented as part of the Treasurer's report? If there's a $60,000 loss there, it should be something that's called out.
Yep.
You know, the Treasurer's report is a great opportunity to point to the anomalies, to point to any surprises, and to explain away the things that you can anticipate members might question. So give them that information at the outset before they have to ask the question at all.
And you know how? One of the clubs that I'm in the lead up to the AGM, there's a video that we get circulated from the Treasurer, a video that we get circulated from the President, that's just candid, piece to camera.
That's so
I'm going to
good.
walk you through the financials. Like, TLDR, too long, didn't read. Like, I don't want to read the report. I don't want to read but if you give me a 5-minute video that walks me through the main points and highlights them and explains that, I'll go, oh, good, thanks.
Yeah.
And it makes a massive difference. And I read a lot, but I guarantee you I watch every single one of those videos every year.
That's great. That's a really clever idea. Such a simple initiative.
Damn, now I wish it was my idea that you said it was clever.
We can edit that out,
Steve, this has been a fun tangent.
Yes, an episode of Tangent, which is, maybe we should rename the podcast. Basket Case Tangents.
Basket Case Tangents. Basket Case Tangents. Yeah, I don't necessarily think that that's got a great ring to it. Thank you for joining me on this little expedition of
as always.
Fun discussions about things that go on at SGMs and AGMs. Thanks, of course, to Jess for being our wonderful editor and producer. If you're not already following us on social media, make sure you do that there. We've got a newsletter going out this week, so if you're not already receiving our newsletters on our website, go and sign up for our newsletters there. And if you'd like to give us a call, all our contact details are on our website, cprgroup.com.au. And as you can probably tell from these little chats that we have, we kind of enjoy what we do. We make a difference in the world of so many people, and our passion is to learn so much that we can across all facets of running a not-for-profit business, and then share everything. I often say I want to die with no secrets.
Yep.
This is where you're going to get them. Thank you for joining us. See you again next time.
And see you on the 22nd for our AGM, Leading Productive AGMs webinar.
22nd of April.
22nd of April.
So yeah, if you're listening to this in the future and it's already been, you'll have to
contact us for a recording.
Exactly.
All right, see you next time.
See you, everyone.
Basket Case Clubs acknowledges the traditional custodians of the country on which we record, being Yugambeh, Turrbal, Jagera and Kabi Kabi land. We recognise their enduring connection to land, waters and culture, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to First Nations listeners.